School bullies ripped the towel off a girl learning to swim. 30 minutes later, a black girl defeated them in front of the entire school. It was Monday morning at Lincoln Middle School, tucked in the heart of Charleston, South Carolina. Dogwood trees were beginning to bloom, the hallways hummed with chatter, and the scent of floor polish still lingered faintly from the weekend cleaning crew. But for Samantha Green, the day felt like walking into a storm. Swim class, first one of the semester. Samantha, 13, had been dreading it since she saw the notice on the gym bulletin board last week. It wasn't the swimming that worried her. She'd learned to swim years ago in her grandmother's backyard pool in Savannah. Her late father, gentle, patient, full of jokes, taught her everything she knew about staying afloat, flipping, breathing deep. But he had passed 2 years ago, and ever since, Samantha hadn't touched the water. What truly scared her now wasn't drowning. It was exposure. She wasn't thin. She knew that. She had curves that came early, thighs that touched, and arms she always tried to keep covered. In school hallways, she shrunk her shoulders to take up less space. She kept her head down, her steps quiet. She was a white girl with pale skin and hair the color of old straw, tied into a low, hurried ponytail. New to Lincoln Middle, she'd arrived only 3 weeks ago. Still no real friends, but she already had enemies. 3 of them, to be exact. Brady Miller, Tanner Holt, and Jace Cunningham, 8th grade royalty, sons of county police officers, coaches, and city contractors. Loud, athletic, and entitled. They filled lockers with insults, dominated gym class, and controlled the attention of the other boys with ease. They didn't need a reason to bully someone. They just needed a target. That morning, Samantha held her towel tightly against her body as she exited the girls' locker room and stepped into the humid air of the pool deck. She wore a navy blue one-piece, plain, modest, a little too snug in places she hated. She walked quickly, hoping to reach the benches before anyone looked too closely. But she wasn't fast enough. The boys were waiting. Standing near the lifeguard chair, Brady elbowed Jace, nodding toward her. "Look who showed up," he said, loud enough for others to hear. "Ready for the tsunami?" Before Samantha could react, it happened. Brady lunged forward, and with a jerk, yanked the towel off her shoulders. Samantha gasped, arms flying to cover herself. She froze in place, standing there in her swimsuit, bare and vulnerable. Laughter exploded from the trio. "Whoa!" Tanner shouted, clutching his chest. "Hope the lifeguards are ready. This wave might flood the gym." "Somebody call FEMA!" Jace howled. "We've got a body mass emergency!" The room echoed with their laughter. A few students standing nearby giggled nervously. Some looked away. Most said nothing. Silence wrapped the pool in shame. Samantha, cheeks burning, stood there paralyzed. Her legs wanted to move, but her mind couldn't tell them how. Her fingers dug into her sides. All she wanted was to disappear. The towel now dangled from Brady's hand like a trophy. "You want it back?" he taunted. "Gotta earn it, blimp." The taunts were interrupted, not by a teacher, not by a lifeguard, but by a voice calm and steady. "Give it back." Every head turned. Standing just outside the locker room entrance was Kaya Thompson. She was tall for her age, 13 like Samantha, but with the quiet grace of someone who didn't need attention to command respect. Her skin glowed a rich brown under the overhead lights. Her swim cap was already on, goggles in hand. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes were locked on Brady like laser sights. Brady blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said," Kaya repeated. "Give her towel back." Jace laughed. "What? You her bodyguard now?" "No," Kaya said. She took a few steps forward, her voice still even. "But I've seen enough cowards for one morning." The words landed like a slap. Brady's smirk faltered. He squared his shoulders. "Why don't you mind your own business?" "I am," Kaya replied. Because if someone thinks this is acceptable at my school, then it is my business. A small group of students had begun to gather now, watching. Some whispered, others just stared. Coach Lombardi, the swim instructor, finally emerged from the office, clipboard in hand, slightly confused by the tension in the air. "What's going on?" she asked, eyes scanning the students. "Nothing," Brady said quickly, tossing the towel on the bench. "Just having fun." Kaya picked it up and walked it over to Samantha, handing it to her with a nod. "Thank you," Samantha whispered, her voice breaking. Kaya turned back to the boys. "Let's race," she said. The room paused. Brady raised an eyebrow. "What?" "You think you're fast?" Kaya asked. "Prove it. 1-on-1. You pick the stroke. Any distance. Right here, right now." Jace and Tanner snorted in disbelief. "You're challenging Brady Miller?" Tanner said, incredulous. "You got a death wish?" "Just tired of watching people act tough while picking on girls half their size." Coach Lombardi blinked. "Is this serious?" Kaya turned to her. "We've got 25 minutes left in class. Let the pool decide." Brady shrugged. "Fine, you're on." Students rushed to the bleachers. Word traveled fast. Phones were out. Coach sighed, set her clipboard down. 50-meter freestyle, she announced. "Both swimmers. On deck." Brady climbed the block with exaggerated bravado, stretching, rolling his shoulders. "Don't cry when you lose, princess." Kaya didn't answer. She climbed onto her platform, crouched low, goggles in place. Her back was straight, her arms steady. Across the pool, Samantha clutched her towel, trembling, but for the first time in days, she wasn't trembling from fear. She was waiting. Brady Miller rolled his neck and flexed his fingers as he adjusted his Apple Watch Ultra 2, glancing at the display like he was checking mission-critical data. The custom Nike band wrapped tightly around his wrist, water-resistant and gleaming in the fluorescent light. He made a show of setting the timer like a pro, ignoring the tension humming through the room. He was used to being the best, or at least convincing everyone he was. His swim shorts were the latest Speedo Fast Skin, graphite gray with red trim, clearly brand new, and likely bought just for bragging rights. As he stepped to the edge of the starting block, he shot one last smirk at Kaya, as if daring her to second-guess her challenge. Kaya stood quietly on her own block. No flashy tech, no gadgets. Her gear was simple. Black competition suit, TYR goggles with mirrored lenses, and a cap that bore only her first name in hand-stitched white letters. She wasn't flexing. She didn't need to. Every inch of her posture said, "This is not a game." Coach Lombardi raised her whistle. 50-meter freestyle. When I blow the whistle, you go. Ready positions. The entire pool room hushed. On the bleachers, phones tilted upward. At least 4 students were recording. One boy whispered, "Bet this ends up on TikTok before 5th period." In the front row, Jace held up his iPhone 15 Pro Max in landscape mode, whispering to Tanner, "If she belly flops, I'm posting it in slow-mo." Samantha sat further back, her towel still clutched tight around her middle. Her face was pale, but her eyes tracked Kaya's every movement. Something inside her was changing, her shame slowly evaporating, replaced by something else. Awe. The whistle pierced the air. Brady launched forward with a splash that sent ripples across 3 lanes. His form was powerful but heavy, his strokes aggressive. He kicked hard, churning water behind him like a speedboat, the muscles in his arms working double time to keep up appearances. His breathing was fast, loud, teeth clenched in concentration. Kaya hit the water half a second later, but the difference in style was immediate. She glided. Each stroke was measured, efficient. Her arms sliced cleanly, her legs steady and smooth. She didn't fight the water. She used it. In that moment, She wasn't swimming against Brady. She was dancing with the current. By the 20-meter mark, Brady had the lead, but just barely. Cheers rang out for both. Some called his name, others held their breath. He powered harder, pushing past his usual rhythm. But at 30 meters, he began to lose speed. Kaya didn't. Her pace was constant, her flip turn flawless. She emerged from the underwater tumble like a blade, gaining ground with every pull. Brady felt her near him. His eyes flicked to the side and panic kicked in. He flailed a stroke. It cost him half a body length. The last 10 meters were a blur. Two bodies racing the silence. Then the smack of hands on wall tiles. The timer beeped. Coach checked her stopwatch. Kaya, 28.2. Brady, 31.7. The pool room froze. Then gasps, murmurs. Someone said, "No way." Another said, "She just smoked him." Jace's phone dropped slightly as he blinked. Samantha exhaled loudly, her heart thudding in disbelief. Brady hung on the edge of the pool, breathing hard. He didn't move for a long second. His chest heaved, not just from the effort, but from the disbelief crawling across his face. His jaw clenched, then he slapped the water. "You jumped early," he growled. "That wasn't a fair start." Coach Lombardi shook her head. "I was watching both blocks. It was clean." "You twitched," he hissed at Kaya, who was calmly pulling herself out of the water. "I won," she said, standing upright, drops of water tracing her arms. "Own it." Brady stormed past her, yanking his towel from Tanner's outstretched hand. "Whatever. This was a fluke." But the crowd didn't think so. Clusters of students were already talking, some laughing, others watching Kaya like they were seeing her for the first time. Her calm confidence radiated in a way no speech ever could. As Coach called for the next group, Kaya walked back to the bench, picked up her gym bag, and without a word, handed Samantha a spare towel, one with a thick cotton weave and a small embroidered KT near the edge. Samantha stared at it. You carry an extra?" "Always," Kaya replied, not unkindly. "You never know who's gonna need it." Samantha hesitated. "Thank you." Her voice cracked again, but this time with gratitude. "You didn't have to do that. You didn't even know me." Kaya met her gaze. "I knew enough." Across the pool, Tanner was scrolling through video footage on his phone. "Bro, it's already got 600 views on Snap." Jace leaned over. "She's gonna be a meme. This is insane." But they didn't sound amused anymore. They sounded nervous. By lunch, the video had been posted in multiple group chats and a private school subreddit. Caption: "Brady gets busted by the quiet girl." Someone added a gif of Kaya's flip turn with fire emojis. Another edited in the words, "She came to swim. You came to sink." In the cafeteria, Brady sat with his arms crossed, AirPods Pro in his ears but no music playing. Every laugh across the room made him flinch slightly. For once, his friends didn't rally around him, not even Jace, not even Tanner. They were busy scrolling their screens, pretending not to see the replays. On the other side of the room, Kaya sat at a small table with Samantha. They shared a tray of fries and laughed quietly as Kaya showed her something on her Galaxy Z Flip 5, the holographic case glittering under the lights. It wasn't flashy, just real. "You ever swim on a team?" Samantha asked. "Used to. In Atlanta," Kaya said, dipping a fry in ketchup. "Had to quit when we moved here. But once you learn to move through the water right, it stays in your bones." "I think I want to learn," Samantha said. "Really learn." Kaya smiled, not boastful, just warm. "Then let's get to work." As the lunch bell rang and students filed out, whispers followed Kaya now. But they weren't whispers of doubt. They were of respect. The girl who had stood silent for weeks had just shifted the gravity of the school without raising her voice. without asking for attention, and without waiting for permission. And this time, no one would pull her towel again. The days that followed were different, almost eerily so. For the first time since Samantha had transferred to Lincoln Middle School, she didn't feel invisible, or worse, ridiculed. When she walked down the hallway on Tuesday morning, backpack snug, shoulders straighter than usual, heads actually turned for a different reason. A few kids nodded at her. One girl even whispered, "You were so brave," before disappearing into a classroom. Brave wasn't a word Samantha had ever associated with herself. Not until now. Kaya, meanwhile, walked with the same unshaken calm she always had, except now the silence around her was no longer loaded with disinterest. It was reverent. Kids gave her space, but this time out of quiet respect, not avoidance. Even teachers seemed to regard her differently, one even stopping to ask if she'd consider joining the school's swim team for the upcoming district qualifiers. Kaya had only shrugged and said, "I'll think about it." But her eyes told another story. She was already thinking 5 steps ahead. During gym, Coach Lombardi pulled both girls aside, clipboard in hand, the scent of chlorine still clinging to her whistle. "The school board wants to talk to you two," she said. "They saw the video. They're impressed. Honestly, I am too. That was good form, Kaya. Damn good." The word slipped out before she caught herself. Kaya just smiled. "Thanks, Coach." "And Samantha," the coach added, "I know what happened that morning. I should have seen it. Should have stopped it." Samantha didn't say anything for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I think it's being handled." The truth was, things were being handled, but not through detentions or parent calls. It was more subtle than that. Social consequences had a way of burning deeper than administrative punishment. Brady, once the loudest voice in any room, had gone nearly silent. He still walked the halls, still sat with Jace and Tanner, but the dynamic had shifted. Whispers followed him now, not because he was admired, but because everyone had seen him lose more than a race. He'd lost face. Rumors swirled that his dad had made calls, tried to get the video taken down. Too late. It was everywhere, on TikTok, Reddit, even Instagram Reels with a dramatic overlay of the Rocky theme. The most viral edit showed Kaya diving in slow motion, freeze-framing as the words "Grace Under Fire" appeared in gold lettering. One user had commented, "This girl's got Olympic energy. Give her the torch." Another had written, "That towel wasn't the only thing dropped. Brady's ego hit the floor too." Samantha read every comment with wide eyes, stunned that her moment of humiliation had become a chapter in someone else's inspiration. By Thursday, a student-led assembly was announced, organized in part by the student council but clearly pushed by faculty trying to pivot from scandal to message. The auditorium was packed. Teachers, students, even a few parents sat waiting under dimmed lights. A banner behind the podium read, "Respect, Resilience, and Responsibility." Principal Dawson, a broad-shouldered man with a voice like a Sunday sermon, welcomed everyone with a grave tone. He thanked Kaya and Samantha by name. Then he invited them to the stage. Samantha hesitated behind the curtain, gripping the hem of her sleeve. Kaya touched her arm lightly. "You okay?" "I've never spoken in front of this many people," Samantha whispered. Kaya's voice was calm. "You already spoke, Sam. That day at the pool, you spoke when you stood your ground. Now you just get to add words to it." Samantha breathed in slowly, then nodded. They stepped onto the stage together. A hush fell over the crowd. Phones rose. Lights blinked. Principal Dawson handed Samantha the mic first. Her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted the height. Hi, she began, her voice wavering. "Some of you saw what happened in swim class. Some of you saw more than I wanted anyone to ever see." Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. She took a breath, but someone stepped up. Not a teacher, not a lifeguard, just someone who decided it wasn't okay. And because she did, I learned something. That silence doesn't protect you. It just traps you. And kindness isn't weakness. It's a decision to do the hard thing when it would be easier to look away. She paused. I'm not ashamed anymore. I'm proud of who I am, and of who stood with me. She turned slightly, handing the mic to Kaya. Kaya didn't shift her weight, didn't fiddle with the mic. She looked out, steady. I didn't step up because I wanted attention, she began. I stepped up because I've been there. When people humiliate you, you feel small, powerless. But no one should feel that way in a school, especially not because of what they look like, or what they wear, or what they weigh. She glanced toward Brady's side of the auditorium. We all mess up. What matters is what you do after that. The room was still. You could hear a phone vibrate in someone's bag. Kaya looked back to the crowd. That's all? The applause didn't erupt. It built. Slow at first. Claps scattered like raindrops, then growing into a downpour of standing ovation. Teachers stood, students cheered. Even Principal Dawson clapped, eyes glinting with something close to pride. By Friday, everything had changed. The swim coach formally invited Kaya to represent Lincoln at the district meet. Samantha asked to be team assistant. They trained together in the mornings. Samantha practiced laps, breathing patterns, flip turns. Kaya taught her drills, timed her, encouraged her. In the locker room, girls who once giggled behind Samantha's back now asked her about her stroke technique, her favorite goggles, even what playlists she listened to while training. She finally admitted it was mostly Taylor Swift and a little bit of SZA. Kaya, meanwhile, remained steady. The attention didn't sway her. She still sat near the window in English, still carried her Kindle instead of a phone in the halls. But there was a quiet confidence in how she carried her bag now, how she spoke to teachers, how she didn't flinch under stares. At home, Samantha and her mother sat together at the dinner table. Her mother had seen the video. She hadn't said much when she first watched it, just stared, then quietly wiped away a tear. That night, she reached across the table, took Samantha's hand, and said, I've never been prouder. Samantha's throat tightened, but she managed to smile. Me neither. And Kaya. She didn't say anything to her parents right away. She didn't need to. Her mother, a nurse, left sticky notes on the fridge with quiet affirmations. You stood up. That matters. Your strength is in your stillness. We see you. Her father, a carpenter, simply built a wooden plaque for her bedroom wall. It said, let them underestimate you. That's where your fire comes from. A week later, the final swim meet arrived. Kaya swam anchor. Samantha cheered from the sidelines, stopwatch in hand, clipboard on her knee. When Kaya dove in, the pool hushed again, not out of surprise this time, but reverence. When she touched the wall, first in her heat, the crowd rose. And in that moment, neither girl was the same as they'd been 30 minutes after that towel was pulled away. They were stronger. And the school? It had learned the quietest students sometimes make the loudest impact, when they finally decide enough is enough. That wheelchair electric, sweetheart? Or just for show? The voice slammed into the peaceful air of Rusty Mug Cafe like a steel bar cracking wood. 3 men in worn leather vests stood near the pie counter, smirking at the woman by the window. Trinity Hayes didn't lift her head. She was 26, pale-skinned, soft-featured, with auburn hair pulled into a frizzy bun. Her long, graceful fingers moved with calm precision, like someone who had learned patience through pain. She wore a loose flannel shirt over a graphic tee, and her lower body remained still, not by choice, but because a car accident 7 years ago had taken that choice from her. Her electric wheelchair gave off a soft hum as it rested beside the front window, soaking in the morning light. It was her favorite spot. Quiet. Warm. Usually unnoticed. But not today. Looks like the cafe installed a mobile parking meter. The tallest biker, Red, cackled. His buddies, Vic and Lenny, snorted behind him. Red stepped closer and tapped the back of Trinity's chair with the tip of his boot. She flinched. Not from pain, from the suddenness. The bowl of chili she'd been serving herself trembled on the tray across her lap. A red splash struck the white cloth tied around her wrist, a hand-sewn napkin from her late mother, the only thing she carried with her every day. "Oops," Red said, without an ounce of remorse, watching the dark stain blossom on the fabric. A boy sitting with his father near the coffee machine noticed. He couldn't have been more than 10. His eyes locked onto Trinity's unmoving face. Her lips didn't part. Her hands didn't reach for a napkin. She only drew a breath, deep, deliberate, a breath heavy with years she never asked for. Across the cafe, the staff froze. The waitress behind the counter glanced at the bikers, then busied herself reorganizing sugar packets already lined up perfectly. No one moved, no one spoke. At that moment, Trinity felt truly alone. If you're reading this and you stand with her, leave a like or type 2 in the comments. "You hear that, boys?" Red said louder. "Not even a thank you." Trinity turned slightly. Her eyes, pale green and unwavering, met his. She didn't blink. She didn't speak, but her silence carried weight. The boy tugged on his father's sleeve. The man, middle-aged, mustached, wearing a fire department hoodie, stared a moment longer before sliding his phone out from under the table and typing quickly, urgently. At last, Trinity slowly wheeled herself toward the kitchen. Her wheels gave a soft squeak. Chili dripped from her skirt to the tiled floor. She didn't bother to wipe it away. That napkin, her mother's, hung from her wrist, stained like a flag flown at half-mast. 10 miles away, a phone buzzed on a dusty nightstand in a run-down motel. Amia Cross stirred. She had dozed off, boots still on, arms crossed, back resting against the headboard. Her phone lit up. "She needs you. Red hit again. It's bad." Amia sat up, her eyes narrowing. The room was dim. A half-packed duffel bag leaned against the door. She hadn't planned on returning to this town. Not now. Not like this. She stared at the message. Her fingers hovered over the screen, then closed the phone. She laid back down. Silence returned, but the stained napkin, the boy's eyes, Trinity's stillness, they echoed louder than any siren. 5 minutes later, Amia was behind the wheel of her truck. The heater wheezed as she turned onto the 2-lane highway heading toward Rusty Mug Cafe. She didn't turn on the radio, didn't check the mirror. She just drove, jaw clenched, her military dog tags cold against her chest. Amia Cross didn't like old roads. They reminded her of places she'd rather forget. Places where silence wasn't peace, but tension pulled tight between heartbeats. Yet here she was, knuckles white on the steering wheel. No music. Just the low hum of tires against cracked asphalt. The town came into view. Same water tower. Same church steeple. Same gas station with the rusted open sign, even though it hadn't pumped fuel in 2 years. She hated that she remembered. As she passed the faded "Welcome to Brentford" sign, her phone buzzed again. "Mr. Nolan, Red's still at the cafe. Trinity didn't go home. She's just sitting there." Amia parked around the back of the Rusty Mug Cafe and shut off the engine. She didn't move. Just sat there, breathing deep to steady her nerves. Trinity. The image of her rushed back, not in the cafe, not with tears, but years ago on the porch swing at her aunt's house, deep in debate about poetry. Trinity was sharp like that, gentle, yes, but never mentally soft. She had been the only one who stayed when Amia returned from deployment, shut down and broken. While others gave space, Trinity brought soup. And silence. The kind of silence that says, "You don't owe me anything. But you're not alone." Amia stepped out of the truck and zipped up her coat. The cold stung her cheeks. She took the long way around the block, letting the walk cool her fire. She wasn't here to fight, but she'd fight if she had to. Inside the cafe, the lunch rush had fizzled into mid-afternoon lethargy. A few customers lingered over half-drunk coffee and old newspapers. Trinity sat at her usual window, eyes unfocused, hands folded in her lap. Her stained napkin was tied neatly at her wrist again, but the chili blotch remained. Amia entered without fanfare. No one noticed, except Trinity. Her head lifted slightly, and when their eyes met, Amia gave the smallest of nods. Trinity's jaw didn't move, but her eyes shimmered. Amia slid into the booth across from her. "I'm here," she said softly. Trinity's voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't ask." "I know." A silence passed between them, the kind made of trust, not tension. A waitress ambled over, chewing gum like she was fighting a war with it. "You want menus?" Amia looked up. "Number just space." The waitress left. "You shouldn't have come," Trinity murmured. Amia raised an eyebrow. "Shouldn't or didn't expect?" Trinity looked away. Outside, a motorcycle rumbled past. It wasn't red. Not yet. But the sound tightened Trinity's shoulders. "They pushed me yesterday," she said flatly. "I didn't fall, not really, but they made me feel like I had." "You did fall," Amia said. "You fell into a silence that let them laugh." Trinity blinked. No one stood up. "I know." Another pause. "Why are you really here?" Trinity asked, her voice edged with hurt, not accusation. Amia hesitated. She wanted to say, "Because you were there for me when I couldn't say my own name." But what came out was, "Because if I don't show up now, what's the point of all the strength I built?" She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded square. A cleaning cloth, soft and white. Gently, she replaced Trinity's stained napkin with it. "This isn't to replace what you lost," she said. "It's so you can carry something new when we go forward." Trinity's fingers trembled as they touched the cloth. For the first time in 24 hours, she exhaled with something like relief. "You planning to fight them?" she asked. "No," Amia replied. "I'm planning to show the town what it really looks like when someone stands beside you." Outside, the sky had gone from gray to silver. A boy passed by the window and waved, and Trinity, for the first time that day, waved back. The next day, the bikers came back. It was just after 11 a.m., the sun hanging low and cold above Brentford, like it had better things to do. Inside the rusty mug cafe, Trinity Hayes was already seated at her usual window, napkin neatly folded, tray steady across her lap, chin up. Amia Cross sat across from her, nursing black coffee that had long gone cold. She had insisted on coming back with Trinity, not to hover, just to be present. A witness that couldn't be ignored. Red entered first, boots thudding like slow thunder on linoleum. Vic and Lenny followed, one chomping gum, the other fiddling with a keychain that looked suspiciously like a brass knuckle. The air shifted, chairs creaked. A spoon clinked against ceramic. No one said a word. "Look who's got company," Red said, eyes landing on Amia. "Upgraded the accessories, huh?" Amia didn't move. Her eyes met his, flat and unblinking. "Didn't know the cafe offered security services," Lenny added, grinning. "Maybe we ought to get ourselves some too." Trinity spoke then, her voice calm but audible. "You're not funny. You're not welcome. And you're not invisible anymore." That quiet sentence slid through the room like a warm knife through cold butter. Red's smirk faltered. Amia leaned forward, her voice low. "We're not here to argue, but you're done making her feel small." Vic laughed. "You think you scare us?" "No," Amia said, reaching into her coat. "But this might." She held up her phone. A paused video filled the screen. One showing Red tipping Trinity's wheelchair, followed by the laughter, the slurs, the smirks. "You went viral," she said to her. 3,000 views overnight, Brentford's most famous bullies. Silence fell. Red's face reddened. "You recorded us without permission?" "You harassed a disabled woman in public," Amia replied evenly. "You don't get to claim privacy when you never gave her dignity." Behind the counter, the waitress, the one who had ignored everything yesterday, finally looked up. Her mouth opened, then closed. Then she turned and walked to the back. Vic reached for Red's arm. "Let's go." But Red stayed. "You think some likes and shares make you right?" "No," Amia said. "They make you seen." That landed harder than she expected. Red stared at Trinity, whose face remained still. Proud. Centered. "You gonna cry again, little girl?" he muttered. Trinity didn't flinch. "I'm going to let you finish your tantrum, and then I'm going to keep living here, eating here, working here, because this is my town too." Red took a step forward. Amia stood. She didn't raise her voice, didn't clench her fists. She simply said, "You have 30 minutes. Make your choices carefully." For a beat, no one moved. Then Red turned. "Come on." Vic and Lenny followed. The door slammed behind them, hard enough to rattle the salt shakers. Outside, the cold had sharpened. The sidewalk glistened with frost. Inside, the cafe remained still. Amia sat down slowly. Trinity exhaled. "I was shaking," Trinity said, her voice hushed. "I know," Amia answered. "But you didn't let them see it. That's power." A table nearby, a man in a Carhartt jacket gave a single quiet nod. A woman 2 booths down tapped something on her phone. Across the cafe, awareness was waking. "They'll be back," Trinity murmured. Amia glanced out the window, her eyes steely. "So will we." By nightfall, the video had reached over 15,000 views. Amia hadn't planned it that way. She just wanted truth to breathe outside of Brentford's silence. But once the clip made its way to a few regional veterans groups and disability rights forums, it caught fire. The post she'd written above the video was short. "Small town. Big silence. When they push you down, stand anyway." Trinity. Haze. Seen, not silent. Brentford truth. The next morning, Amia sat on the steps of her rented room above the hardware store, sipping coffee from a chipped thermos. She scrolled through the comments. "I served. I see you, Trinity." Disgusting. Brentford should be ashamed. "Thank you for not letting them erase her." Where's the sheriff in this mess? Those men need consequences. And then, of course, the other kind. Bet they edited it to look bad. Why bring race into it? That girl should just stay home if she's so fragile. Typical activist crap. Amia exhaled. The digital world had found its way into the quiet streets of Brentford. And while some people now whispered thanks to Trinity when she wheeled by, others stared harder, longer, like she'd broken an unspoken rule. That afternoon, Trinity arrived at the cafe to find the windows covered in streaks of raw egg. A torn note was taped to the door. "Don't play the victim and you won't get hurt." Inside, the manager stood behind the counter, pale and sweating. "I'm sorry," he said, eyes darting everywhere but at Trinity. "We didn't know the video would make it this far." "You mean you didn't think anyone would care?" Amia said, stepping in behind her. I think it's best you two take a break from coming in. Just till things cool off. Trinity's mouth opened, closed. She turned her chair away without a word. Outside, the cold wind caught her scarf, whipped it sideways. She didn't fix it. "Is it cowardice?" she asked Amia softly, "or just fear dressed in manners?" Amia didn't answer right away. Instead, she crouched beside Trinity, leveled their eyes. "This town was taught to be quiet. You untaught it. That makes you dangerous." A pause. "Are you scared?" Trinity asked. "I used to be," Amia said. "Now, I'm just ready." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small notebook. Inside were names, contacts, people from her former unit, people who owed her favors, people who believed in justice, not noise. Trinity glanced down. "You're calling in reinforcements?" "No," Amia said. "I'm calling in witnesses." And that evening, Red posted a clip to his own page. Grainy footage, clearly shot on a phone, showed Trinity slowly rolling away from the cafe. Head down, scarf blowing like a surrender flag. His caption read, "See? Even the big mouth sidekick couldn't keep her safe. Ain't no army in Brentford." The comments lit up with jeers, the likes stacked. Amia saw the video while sitting in her truck, the engine off, hands cold. Her eyes didn't narrow, she didn't curse, she simply hit record. Amia Cross, seated in the cab, dog tags visible, voice calm and slow. "You're right, Red. Brentford doesn't have an army. But it's about to learn what honor looks like. You've got 30 minutes. She hit send. The clip uploaded, and the countdown began. The sound of tires on gravel was the first clue something had shifted. At exactly 2:58 p.m., just as Red settled into his usual booth at the Rusty Mug Cafe, a matte gray SUV rolled into the parking lot. Not flashy, not loud, but unmistakable. Government-issue tires, tinted windows, license plate clean but unreadable in the light. Inside, Red smirked as if nothing had changed. Vic twirled a toothpick between his fingers. Lenny tapped his boots against the underside of the table, glancing toward the door. A hush began to creep through the cafe like fog curling in under the doorframe. Then the door opened. 3 figures stepped in. Not in uniform, but they didn't need it. The first was broad-shouldered, bald, with a slow, measured gait that said more about discipline than injury. The second, lean and silent, wore a heavy coat with a patch from the 3rd Infantry Division. The third, a woman, walked like wind wrapped in steel, posture perfect, eyes scanning like she was still on patrol. They said nothing. They didn't need to. They walked past the tables like ghosts of every vow America ever made but forgot to keep. When they reached the table where Trinity and Amia sat, they simply stood. Amia looked up. "You're late." The bald man nodded once. "Traffic." Trinity, seated in her chair with her back straight and her scarf tied tight, turned to them. "Thank you." The woman veteran placed a hand briefly on Trinity's shoulder. Not soft, not hard. Just right. Then the bald man turned to face Red. "We've read the comments," he said calmly. Red leaned back, arms stretched. "What, you gonna teach me a lesson?" "No," the man said. "You already failed that class." He reached into his coat and unfolded a document, placed it on the table. A letter from a regional veterans board. Official complaint. Filed. Logged. Under review. Red's smirk tightened. The woman spoke next. "You humiliated a disabled civilian. On record. You mocked her, threatened her, followed her. And now you've mocked a veteran who served beside men and women just like us." She took a step closer. "You think this town will protect you, but it won't. Because towns remember which side of history they stood on. Especially when the footage is this clear." Lenny shifted. Vic looked away. And Red. He didn't speak. But the heat in his face betrayed the thrum of something colder than fear. Exposure. Behind the counter, the cafe manager peeked out. Customers stopped pretending to read. Phones were out. Some already recording. Amia rose. She walked to Red's booth, placed her hand beside the folded complaint, and said, "We told you." 30 minutes. She stepped aside. Trinity rolled forward. No announcement, no anger. Just presence. She faced Red directly. "I'm not here to watch you apologize. I'm here to make sure you never forget that I existed, and you didn't break me." Red looked like he wanted to say something. He didn't. The bald man leaned in close, voice barely above a whisper. "You made a lot of noise, but it only takes one woman rolling forward to make you silent." Then they left. All 5 of them, out the door, into the light. A bench sat outside the cafe. Not new, but freshly cleaned. Someone had set a folded blanket on it, the same pattern as Trinity's scarf. They sat together for a moment. Amia, Trinity, and the 3 veterans. No words, just presence. Inside, Red stared at the door as if waiting for it to close for good. Outside, Trinity breathed in the late afternoon air, and for the first time in days, it didn't feel sharp. It felt like steel. The town changed quietly, no parades, no headlines, no mayor's speech, but a week after the confrontation at Rusty Mug Cafe, Red's motorcycle shop was shuttered for renovation. Vic stopped showing up at his usual bar stool. Lenny moved out of town. Or maybe just underground. More importantly, something shifted in the way Brentford looked at itself. At the grocery store, a teenager held the door open for Trinity. At the post office, someone slipped a handwritten note into her mailbox. "We saw. We're sorry. Thank you." The cafe reopened under new management. The name had changed, just a little. The Rusty Mug sign had been replaced with hand-painted letters that now read, Harmony Cafe. Inside, a corner table bore a plaque, reserved for courage. Underneath, a single line in brass. Justice doesn't knock. It shows up. Trinity sat at that table now, stirring her coffee. No chili, no stain, just peace. Across from her, Amia tapped a folder against her palm. A grant application for a local program she and Trinity had started, Wheels Forward, a mentorship group for young women with disabilities. "You sure about this?" Amia asked. "I'm not sure about anything," Trinity said, smiling. "But I've learned that's not a reason to stop." A group of high school students entered, laughing, jackets unzipped. One of them recognized Trinity and offered a quiet, respectful nod. She nodded back. Outside the window, the bench still sat, the one from that day. Someone had added a small brass plate to it. Amia hadn't seen it before. She stepped outside to read it. "To those who roll forward, even when the road is cracked." She stood there a while, letting the cold air press against her cheeks. It didn't sting. It reminded her she was here, still standing. Inside, Trinity rolled toward the counter where a young barista, new, nervous, fumbled with the register. Trinity smiled and offered gentle help, walking her through the buttons. The girl relaxed. That was Trinity's gift, not defiance, not noise, just presence. Amia watched it all from the doorway, hands tucked into her pockets, dog tags hidden beneath her collar once more. Some battles weren't fought with fists. They were fought with return visits, open stares, and a refusal to disappear. As Trinity wheeled back to the table, a boy, the same boy who had filmed the first video, passed by with his father. He stopped. "Miss Hayes," he said, "are you a hero?" Trinity looked at him. "No," she said gently, "but I showed up. A beat. That's what heroes do," the boy whispered, before hurrying off. Amia stepped beside Trinity's chair. "You ready?" Trinity nodded. They moved together through the cafe and out into the street. 2 women, 2 histories, 1 truth shared between them. No marching band, no fanfare, just quiet boots and rolling wheels, side by side, into a town that finally saw them.